In our last session, we touched on a few really important themes, and I'd like to elaborate those here. The first theme that we touched upon was, what do we do when our focus keeps changing and the idea for our business keeps changing before we've even started the business? How do we manage that? And how do we navigate the fact that we're in a changing environment and we might be responding to external things that are changing, or we might be responding to our own passions changing or our interests changing? How do we deal with that uncertainty as it continuously evolves? And part of the things that we looked at was how you navigate and expand upon an idea that allows it to change. Um, and that sort of leads into the other piece that another topic that we touched on last time, which is, where do we start when we haven't started? And again, this is around part of the idea we were looking at is, if the external landscape is changing, how can we choose where to start if the starting point feels like it's always moving on us? And one of the things that came up for us in that conversation was to just begin, because sometimes we can be too self-critical or too self-judgmental, and sort of limit ourselves before we even get started. And so one of the things that we learned is, we don't need to know exactly where to start. We need to just get started. Um, and the metaphor that I sometimes like to use is, it's like walking through the woods at night and it's dark. And if we have a candle, we can only see two or three of the next steps. If we expect to see the whole path forward, we decide we can't go. But if we step forward with the candle, then the next two or three steps get revealed. And so we want to engage in an iterative process where we step forward the best we can, given where we are at any given moment. And then we adapt to the changing conditions and the new conditions. So I think those two together are really important. Is, if the idea is shifting and the focus is shifting for our business, but we're still willing to take an initial step from whatever new starting point we're at in any given moment, then we can navigate this. And this is truly how things unfold. The idea will change. We'll discover new information. We'll talk to people with other ideas that help inform and change our idea. And that's how things grow. Another theme that emerged is related to this self-criticism, and that is doubting ourselves, doubting that we're the right person to start the sort of business that we want to start. And so this is really important to look at as well. If we have an idea, we have a passion, um, it doesn't matter if we're perfectly informed. In fact, we can't be perfectly informed. So to just get started and to find our limitations along the way, we all have limitations. We'll all find places where we could develop things a little better or a little more completely. And this relates to the fourth theme that emerged from our last session, which is, how do we sustain inspiration? How do we find it initially, but then how do we also sustain it? And again, this relates to not expecting ourselves to know fully, and to engage with other content, to engage with other people, and to make our idea social in a way that helps it change and helps it grow. I mean, that really is the water, is that we're talking about the business we want to create. And again, this last session was focused primarily on the challenges of starting a business from nothing or from nowhere, or from where we are when we feel like it's limited. So again, the four main topics or themes that emerged from our session last time was, what do we do when there's changing focus and the idea is changing? What do we do when the starting point place is uncertain or challenging, or we feel limited in that capacity to some degree? Uh, how does self-doubt show up? The third piece is, how does self-doubt show up, and how do we navigate that? How do we practice with that? How do we accept and tolerate the degree of self-doubt we have, but still move forward anyway? And then the fourth piece, the fourth theme that emerged was this sustained inspiration. How do we continue to check in with ourselves, but also engage with others, in a way that continues to move our idea forward. And of course, all of these ring true at any stage in a business, especially when we're beginning a business. But as we've mentioned, at any stage, we're beginning the next stage. So we're always at some starting point. And how do we navigate that so we don't feel paralyzed, so we don't not act? And truthfully, that's part of what the Mindful Business Owners Group does, is it puts us in a position where we're brushing up against other business owners at various stages. And that helps us get ideas. That helps us feel support and inspiration in places maybe that we felt like there were roadblocks. And so, how do we put ourselves in the right communities and situations so we get the support we need to move forward, even if their fears arise or as they arise? And that's true for every business owner.